Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. We're out by the garden today and we are about to do something that if you would have asked me a couple years ago, I didn't think we would ever be doing.
Now, about a month ago, we talked with you guys about kind of the frustrations that we've been having out in the in-ground garden area. And our frustration has been with the soil. Here in southwestern Missouri, it's kind of hit and miss where you have good soil, mostly have bad soil.
Here at our homestead here, our soil is pretty much like gravel. It's not rocks that you could really pick out of the ground very easily. It's just a very gravelly type soil. And honestly, it's gravel and clay is what we have.
At our last homestead, before we moved to this property, we actually were really blessed, and I don't think we really understood that until we moved here. We had a good 2 feet, maybe more, of really great soil that we had our in-ground garden in, but it has been a completely different experience since we've moved here to this new property.
So all of that to say that we have made the decision, and we shared this with you guys a while back, that starting next year, we will be switching over completely to raised bed gardening. There was a lot that went into that decision. We're not going to go through all of it again today, but let's just say that it's the best decision for our homestead and for our growing.
Now that is going to be the large project that we're going to be working on this fall. It is pretty in-depth. There's a lot of physical work that needs to be done.
Right.
We're starting the very beginnings of that project today.
Right. One of the reasons it's going to be such a big project is because we plan on still growing just about the same amount of food. So when we say we're moving to raised beds, it's not going to be 1 or 2 little raised beds. It's going to be quite an ordeal to get all of it put together.
But in order to start that project, in order to put raised beds in here, we have a lot of prep work to do. Now we're about 4 weeks away from our typical first frost date. Our typical first frost date is October 15th, so we really have a month to go. With that being said, our plants in the garden are also at the end of their life cycle. They're not producing much, they're looking really sad, and they're really just kind of ready to be done for the season.
So what we're going to be doing today is a final harvest of our in-ground garden, what will ultimately be the last harvest from an in-ground garden here on this property, unless down the road we may do some corn or something like that that can't be done in raised beds. But for our main garden, this is the last time we're going to be growing like this. So we're going to go through today and we're going to pick whatever can still be harvested for our own consumption. What can't be harvested for our consumption will be going to the pigs. And then as well, we're also going to be pulling out all of the plants and starting to get this area ready for the next phase of the project. So before we get going harvesting, the first thing that we're going to do is take down our electric fence. Now we've been using this type of electric fence around our gardens for the last 7 years, and it's really proven to be quite successful for pretty much everything except rabbits. Rabbits, for some reason, could care less about this type of fencing, and they seem to get right through it. Our hope is that once we switch over to the raised beds, we won't need fence around our garden like this at all anymore. As you know, we have this chicken moat area, this double fence system around this entire area. It's about a 1 acre plot of land. We have this double fence system, and in 4 years, we haven't had a single deer cross that fence. So deer really aren't a concern for us in the garden area or in our orchard area. And since we're now moving to raised beds, I don't think the rabbits are going to be an issue either. In our greenhouse, we leave that open all the time during the summer. We leave the sides up. We've had no issues with raccoons or anything like that getting in the greenhouse and eating any of the produce. So I don't think it will be any different out here either. At least that's our hope. So we're going to take this fence down. We're going to store it away. I'm sure we'll have another use for it someday on the homestead, but we're not going to need it around the garden anymore. And that is actually going to be quite a nice thing to be able to come out here and not always have to work around this fence. So we're going to get that taken down, and then we're going to start harvesting.
Okay, go. Now that we have that fence taken down, it's going to be easier to do some of this harvesting. Now there really isn't a whole lot left or good yet to be harvesting. There are some tomatoes, but the tomatoes are really not that good anymore. A lot of them have sun scald. They're just not tasting very good in this area. It's really not that big of a deal because we do still have quite a few tomatoes in the greenhouse that taste fantastic. So any of the tomatoes that we can't harvest for our use, we can give to the pigs. Other than that, in this garden right now, there is some okra that is still good that we can pick to bring into the house and eat. There are also some pumpkins that are ready to be harvested. That's really about all that is still left and still good in this garden. So we're gonna quickly move through these tomatoes, pick off any that are still good. The rest will go to the pigs. Do we want to get the ones that are good first and then go back and get the ones for the pigs? Small basket of tomatoes is what was really left that's good enough to bring into the house. There are some, I know you can see ripe ones out there, but they're past their prime or have split and have like little rotten spots on them and stuff, or bug damage. So the red ones and the green ones that are still on there are going to go to the pigs. After we harvest those for the pigs, we're just going to pull the plants right away so that the tomato section is completely finished. So let's get that going for the pigs so we can move on.
Well, the tomato row is completely done. Next up is the row of beans. These were the purple potted pole beans that we did this year, and they're actually putting on a little bit of a fall crop, but because we have to get going on this project, we just decided that we're going to pull them anyway. I've been eating a few fresh ones while we're out here today, but there's not a whole lot. So I'm not really sure how well this is going to go because they are really tangled onto this cattle panel. Normally what we would do with something like this is wait until winter or even next spring when these plants are completely dead and they're kind of dry and crisp, and then you can pull them out real easy. But because they're still strong, I don't know, we're just going to have to do the best we can do and hope that we can get most of them off the plants or off the fences. Now, the plan for this area, for this whole garden area, is that when we're done getting rid of this garden, we're going to leave this existing weed fabric down, but we're going to put a second layer over the top. So we're going to come through with mowers and we're going to mow everything down as close as we can get it to the ground, and then sweep everything off the existing weed fabric and then put new layers over the top. So it won't really matter that there's existing holes in this or that there's weeds growing up through, because everything's going to be covered with a new layer before we start putting the raised beds here. So we're going to get going on these beans, and we're going to see if we can get this done. It's evening, so we're starting to lose daylight, but we're hoping to be able to get as far as getting the beans done and the okra and cucumber row done yet tonight, and get everything mowed down up to the point that we're however far we get. So fingers crossed. I think we've got about an hour of daylight. I think we can get it done. Might just have to do the best we can and then take these out and let everything dry on them. Out there somewhere.
Next up to harvest is the okra. Now the okra are very much at the end of their life. A lot of the okra that is on there is too kind of hard to eat. So we are going to go ahead and just look at the very tops here and pick some of the most tender ones that are still up here on these branches. Now this is called the dwarf long pod okra. And so even though some of the pods are pretty long, longer than a lot of people pick their okra, this variety, even though they get pretty long, they're still nice and soft and edible. So we're going to go through some of these and pick them and make sure they're still pretty flexible. Like this one is still, it's quite long and very flexible yet, so that's still good to eat. So we're just going to pick some of this, bring it in the house so we can enjoy the last harvest of the okra.
Well, the best way that I know to get rid of okra plants, especially when they're as big as these are, just a good old-fashioned pair of loppers. These are probably a good, I don't know, 3 inches in diameter at the base, so there's no way you could just pull them. That's how big those are. They're almost like a small tree. Luckily, they're very soft, so they're easy to cut. The last thing we need to take down in this section is just the trellis from our cucumber plants. The cucumbers have actually been dead and gone for, gosh, a couple months already, really. They didn't do very well out here this year. Luckily, we had a really good year with them in the greenhouse, so Though it didn't matter quite as much that they didn't do as well out here. So we're going to get rid of the trellises. Then I think the plan is for me to get on the mower and mow some of this stuff down. These T-posts are, we used my post driver to put these in. You guys, these are in, so the ground here is so rocky and hard, I can't get them back out. So until we can get in here with the tractor and use the T-post puller on the tractor, they're going to have to stay in and we're going to work around them. We'll probably do that sometime tomorrow. So that just tells you, I think, that we're making the right decision about switching to raised beds, because the ground in this area is just not conducive to gardening. You know, we could spend the next, 5 to 10 years, maybe even more, trying to build the soil here, adding things every year, trying to really build up a good, 6 to 8 inches of good soil on top of this. But you guys, even with what's underneath, we're never going to make that better. So we really do feel like the best plan is to switch to raised beds so that we can save those, 10 years and just start with good soil right away next year. So I really am confident that this is the best way forward for us. And I'm excited to get going on this project. All right, we're going to get these trellises out and then I'm going to get mowing.
Well, while Kevin starts mowing all these weeds and everything down, I'm actually going to go into the end of the garden, look through the watermelons, the pumpkins, the Canada crookneck squash, and see if there's anything that we can salvage that's good enough to come into the house. And so at the end, we'll let you know what we've harvested, but we need to get going because there is not much daylight left.
Right, it is 20 after 7, and it usually gets dark this time of year in about 20 minutes. So we're gonna hurry up.
Well, it was a quick harvest, but it was really successful. I'm excited to show you what I was able to grab out of this end of the garden really quickly. We have various sizes of watermelons. They may or may not be ready to eat, but we're gonna bring these inside, and as we want watermelon, we're gonna cut into one. If they're ripe, we'll eat them. If not, the pigs will love them. We also had quite a few of these small pumpkins. I don't remember exactly the name of these. It's some kind of a cheese pumpkin. I've actually harvested several of these already, and 2 of them are quite big. But these are really good eating pumpkins, like pie pumpkins. So I'm excited to do some recipes, some cooking with these, and bring you guys along. And then we were only had a few Canada crookneck squash this year. Compared to some other years when we have a bunch of them. Looks like we only have 4 of them that we'll be able to bring into the house. I don't know how many of the seeds germinated that we planted out here. We just kind of planted and got busy and didn't come back. So, maybe 4 is okay for this year. So this is a pretty good harvest. I'm pretty happy about this. Just need to bring these into the house and start eating them.
Well, the garden looks quite a bit different than when we started just a few hours ago. I hope you guys can see it okay. I tried to lighten it up on the camera. Hopefully that doesn't make it kind of grainy, but once all of this stuff dries now that I mowed, we'll sweep this all off real good. But then remember, we're going to be putting the new weed fabric right over the top of this. So if anything gets trapped in between, it's not really a big deal.
You guys, this is one step closer to finishing this project. It's hard to even imagine finishing this project when we've barely even gotten started.
Right.
But it's a big project. We're really excited that the weather's kind of starting to cooperate a little bit with us. It's not so darn hot.
Right.
So we can get out here and get working on this.
I'm going to let you guys in on just a little secret. We have decided what direction we're going to go with raised beds, and we're hoping to bring that to you in just a couple videos from now. So stay tuned, because it's going to be pretty spectacular
awesome. Yeah.
what we're going to be doing in here as far as how much food we're going to be able to grow in raised bed gardens.
You guys, if you're enjoying videos like this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and also remember, the best way you can help us here on the homestead is just to share our videos on your social media. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.